Hello everybody, I'm John. This is the Midnight Paint and Body channel. On this video we're going to get back on the 74 AMC Hornet body and paint restoration. And we're going to start disassembling this used quarter panel. So if you happen to catch the last couple videos on this, then you know, but if you're new, it's a 74 AMC Hornet Levi's edition. The last couple videos have gotten a little bit of metal work done on the doors, got the car all stripped down. Last one I put on this is an NOS, so this is a new old stock OEM quarter panel. It was pretty beat up because it's been kicking around since the early 70s, but it was still a new part, had never been installed. So we got that on. Actually, there's a little bit of finishing to do on it still, but I haven't worked on this for a little bit. And then for the other side, so this quarter panel was really bad. Not just the rust, this had been hit really hard at some point and was really full of body filler, and it's stretched and wavy, and it's just a mess. It's not good. See, we're rusted out along the bottom there as well. So I'm not going to cut this side apart yet. I want to get this used quarter panel separated. So this came out of Arizona. You know, you can't get parts for these cars. There's very little in the way of new aftermarket parts, so this was the way to go on this, and we were very lucky to get it. So we need to separate this quarter panel, which is I mean, it's a lot of work. It's got to be fairly delicate, so all of our spot welds have to be released. These ones are from the inside. We'll have to flip it over. Spot welds around the wheelhouse, which, you know, we do have some rust, so it is going to want to tear apart somewhat. I know we're rusted through a little here. Now, not a huge deal. I mean, obviously it would be nice to have completely rust-free, but like I said, we were lucky to find parts for this thing. Oh, spot welds along here. Now, unfortunately, this actually, I didn't even notice this until I put this on the stand just now. When this was cut off the car, they cut off the rear part of the quarter panel. And unfortunately, that is a bad part on this one. So that new quarter is missing this section. So we're going to have to make that, I guess. Yeah, it's too bad we didn't get this back quarter that we really need. So, yeah, that sucks, but we're gonna have to work around it, because still, originally I thought I was gonna have to rebuild this one, and I was not looking forward to that. So, let's get set up. Now, I probably won't record a hell of a lot, but you know, these spot welds that you can see aren't too bad. We'll have to clean up around the wheel lip and see if we can find the spot welds. You know, I can see these ones, but we get into where it's rusty, we can't see them. We're probably going to want to salvage this inner wheelhouse. We rebuilt this one on this side. I know that one is worse, so we'll try and separate it to where we can still use this. Yeah, other than that, it's straightforward. Spot welds. We'll have to melt out the lead seam and find the spot welds there. And then there'll be the spot welds down the trough. So, yeah, just a bunch of drilling and swearing and being angry. That's what auto body is. So, I'm going to grab some tools and let's get set up and just start drilling out some welds. panel cut loose. Still a bunch of trimming left to do. I've left a couple of the flanges on, but for the most part it's off. Unfortunately, like I pointed out, we're missing that back corner, which is really going to suck. That was the rust behind the wheel, and that's not a big deal. You know, to cut that out and put a piece in, just hopefully it doesn't continue. And then in front of the wheel as well, you can see we've got, yeah, we're definitely rusted through, so we'll see what's left after sandblasting. I'm worried about this whole bottom, but way better than what we had to work with that other one. So I'm going to continue with some trimming and hopefully maybe get this out and get the inside sandblasted before the end of the day. Well, unfortunately, our Arizona quarter panel isn't as good as I had hoped. I mean, it's still totally rebuildable, but yeah, just a little more work than I was expecting on it. So we're gonna have to cut a piece out there. That's an easy one. We have to put a piece in here. It's a little more complex because it's got a curve in it. And then the worst is, of course, behind the wheel. Well, we're gonna have to replace this whole section. So definitely some metal work to be done. And then this, I mean, we'll cross this bridge when we get to it. I'm not sure. I mean, well, obviously gonna have to build this back piece of the quarter, but we can't do anything with that until it's kind of fitted to the car and we know what we're working with exactly. So that is enough for me for today. And tomorrow we'll get back at this thing and see what we can do with it. Well, it's the next day here, guys, and actually the day's mostly over, and I'm just finally getting back on this. I was doing some other stuff today, but so our quarter panel we cut off yesterday. So this is a piece from ahead of the rear wheel. So I just figured I would get that out. I was going to start making a piece. And you see it's got, I would have to shape it to come up with that kind of twist, which shouldn't be too hard. But then I went and looked at the car. As much as this quarter panel is complete junk, that piece ahead of the wheel was actually still good. So now we have the right shape, even though it's dented, but that's easy to hammer out now. So I'm going to trim this to fit that, and I'll just sandblast the inside. And we can use actually a piece of the original quarter panel, and then we just have the right, the right shape right off the bat. So I'm going to trim this up, and then I'll bring you guys back. So that definitely made it easier than making a piece. Now we have that correct shape already, so I took it outside and sandblasted it quickly, and I just trimmed it to fit nicely. Gotta get it just right. So there we go. Now we can start tacking that thing in there. It's an easy one. that put in. So that one was pretty easy, of course, because we were able to rob a piece from the original quarter. This one's going to be a lot trickier, so I'll try and figure out something for that. Yeah, shouldn't be too tough a shape to make, but not sure if we'll get to that today. But maybe we will. I don't know. Anyway, I'll bring you guys along as I make more progress. Well, guys, I don't remember where I left off on this Hornet quarter panel, but I know we were welding in some panels that had rust hole ahead of the wheel and behind the wheel, so I have put some new pieces of metal in. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, so I'm just going to blow a coat of epoxy on both sides of it here, just to seal it up, and then we can go continue working on the car and start cutting the car apart in preparation for some new panels. Well, I'm back on the Hornet here, guys. Quick disclaimer, it's been 3-4 weeks since I was filming on this, so I don't remember exactly where we left off. I know I do that a lot, but always jumping around. So, I know we were working on the used quarter panel. We've got it all separated. We've got it kind of ready to go on the car, but I have still got a bunch of inner repair to do. So, what I have done so far today, so this is the wheelhouse from the car. So I've cut this one off, obviously. This one is really rotten, and it's also all buckled, so the shape is all wrong on this one. So this thing was hit really hard in this back end. So we saw the aftermath with the quarter panel, which is mostly why we were replacing it, the rust and the old damage. So what I've done, separated this section from our used quarter panel. Yes, this one is also rusty, but it's much better than the one I cut off the car. It has quite a bit less rust, so this one I just need to make a little section in here. That's not a big deal, but this one has the right shape, so I would rather use this than that. I cut half of it off. I mean, I could have taken that whole section from the other one. I just felt like this was a better option because this is an easy splice. I've got one hand. So, I saved that alignment hole right there. So that's easy to line up. The rest just lines up. This dropout at the back is a little misshapen, so I can hammer that into shape to fit this wheelhouse, but this one's just a better option. So that's where I'm at right now. I think I'm just going to take this outside and just dust it off with the sandblaster because it only takes a few minutes. I mean, I know I'm not sandblasting all of this, but it's going to give me a cleaner piece to work with when I cut this section out, make a little piece in there. So I'm going to start with that, then we'll continue fitting it, then we'll do our repair, and hopefully before too long be putting a quarter panel on. We've got the rocker panel to do still too, but I'll bring you guys back shortly. section of the used wheelhouse in place. So that worked out well. So I patched it up while it was off. This is where it was rusted through. Like I showed you, I've just used half of it, but when you're using half of an OEM part, it fits perfectly. So you gotta like that. So just plug welded around the perimeter and just that one seam. So that is solid as new. So my next thing, I'm going to move on to this rocker panel. Now I'm not going to record this part, guys, because I did all of that on the first video on this car. I showed you what I used. Was these, what are they? 02 to 08 Dodge slip-on rocker panels. So the shape fit pretty well for what I wanted here, so the other side turned out good. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the first video. Second video? Actually, I guess it would have been the second video on this car, where I did the quarter panel rocker panel on the other side. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to record doing this rocker because it's all on the other video, so I'm going to get that done. Once I have the rocker on, we can move on to installing the used quarter panel. Well, I figured I should do a little check-in here for you guys before I go any farther. Getting close to the end of the day. I've pretty much spent the entire day doing this rocker panel on this side. A little bit of rebuilding on the inner structure. So the outer rocker is on. Like I said before, guys, I went over all of this, how I did it in the last video on the rocker on the other side, so I didn't bother recording it again. So this was that wheelhouse back half that I spliced in. So I've just coated all the inners with some Krylon rust paint to seal it all up before the quarter panel goes over top. Got a little bit more trimming to do at the back. We'll be ready to set the quarter on. But I think before I do that, I'm gonna come up here, because obviously I've got a bunch of rebuilding to do in this area. Now I chose to do it this way, to put the rocker on first and just get all of this solid. And now I can start cutting this out bit by bit and making pieces for it. So not sure quite how far I'll have to go, but it's obviously a little crusty. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll start doing a little cutting, start making a few pieces, and I'll bring you guys along for this part. Oh, actually, something I should have mentioned. Now we know this car was hit hard in this back end, but this has actually had, when I cut it apart, I kind of realized once I cleaned it up. So this had a rocker spliced in sometime in the past up to here. Now you can see they came up to here, and it was spliced here. So now I've spliced my piece into the piece that they spliced in to the original metal. So we're kind of, yeah, I mean, we're Frankensteining it a little bit, but this is all nice and solid still. But this area, I think we're, well, maybe not. Yeah, that's pretty crusty. So I'll cut this section out. And I do plan on, even though I've already welded my new panel to here, I probably could have left that open because I want to make a piece for here as well. So you can see where it was kind of overlapped here. This is where they spliced into. And it's, I would rather just kind of cut that right out and start fresh with some of it. So anyway, okay, I'm going to figure out a plan for my next step. So I'm going to start rebuilding this area. I'm going to do it in sections. There's no way I can make that in one piece. And that kind of brings me to something I've touched on before with you guys in these videos. Now, I am a pretty average body man. I'm not a great fabricator like you see on the TV shows. I don't have a lot of specialty tools, so I pretty much make do. I mean, I'm okay at fabricating stuff, but you know, if you're used to seeing those guys on the TV shows with the beautiful stuff they do, this is not like that. So, just so you know. So, this piece I kind of made up quickly. It's just rough cut, but it's going to be right about there. I figure if I get this cut out, get this tacked into place, and then I can trim it to where I want it, and then I can start with that flat piece on top. So, a little bit at a time. So, basically what I'm doing right now, this is actually just some weld-through primer, but just kind of marking where I want to cut, because honestly, I don't have a Sharpie that works right now. Working away for a while. I kind of finished up our nasty rocker area here. I didn't film a lot of it. With a lot of this stuff, I mean, well, for one thing, if I film all of that stuff, the videos are way too long and nobody watches them. And the other thing is, you know, if I do instructional videos, say doing rocker panels, whatever, stuff I've done many times, it's easier to show you the steps, but stuff like this, you're just kind of winging it as you go along. You know, I showed you that first piece I made here, and then I just made another piece that fit there. So it was actually worked out really well, but so, you know, it's not absolutely beautiful, but it is solid, and, you know, a little skiff of body filler, and it will look like it never happened. But now, there's my shop keys laying on the floor. I am moving on to our recycled quarter panel. So I've been doing a little bit more trimming. So the trickiest part of this one, that I showed you guys, is when that quarter panel was cut off of the donor vehicle. Yeah, just have to change camera battery there. So, like I was saying, when this panel was cut off the donor vehicle, they cut off the back of the quarter panel and the back of the taillight panel, I guess. Now, I think this was cut off long ago. It looked like it had been in stock somewhere for a long time. But this is presenting a problem for sure, because probably the absolute worst part, well, this was all really bad, but this part that we kind of need is garbage. So it can't be reused, but I am trimming it in a way that I'm hoping, actually I don't think I've even left enough of that, but it doesn't matter, to just use this for fitting. We'll get the quarter panel fit to the car, and then I can work at rebuilding this back quarter. As you can see, I mean, it's all bad, it's all rusty, it's going to be a kind of a bugger. And then, you know, this seam here, like where we joined the one new old stock OEM quarter panel, you know, this has been completely welded up. You can see it's brazed. So that tells you too that, you know, these repairs were probably done in the 80s, something like that. But all of this, you know, this seam was fully welded where it should have just been a couple spot welds where we do need to slip the quarter panel under there. So there's a lot of stuff I'm going to need to just clean up the best I can. And then, like, a lot of this stuff I'm going to have to rebuild. You know, it's going to be similar to that rocker. I'll just do it in pieces, do it the best I can. And, you know, at that point we will have to, I'm sure, rely on some body filler to smooth all this stuff out. But then, you know, you look at stuff like, you know, this dropout is still crushed. It's solid, so I am actually going to leave it It shouldn't be hurting anything, but then, you know, back in here, it's kind of crumpled, but we're kind of leaving that piece in place for now. So there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of messing around. There's going to be a lot of tinkering and time-consuming fitting and making pieces, fabricating, whatever we need to do. But at the end of the day, we'll make it work. It is what we have, and sometimes with these cars, that's all you have is what you have, because it's not like you can just get new parts. So, I'll continue on some trimming and cleaning up, and then when I start getting that quarter panel set in place, I'll bring you guys back and show you what we're up against. Well, let's try our first trial fit of the quarter panel. Chances are it might not even go on yet. We might have to do some more trimming, but I think we're close. These are a bit of a bugger. I remember the other side, because you've got to go under and over and under, and there's some kind of twisting, messing around involved for sure. Trimming of the quarter here. Okay, let's try it again. Pull it back off, do a little more trimming, and it's, yeah, man, this thing is almost ready to go on there. All right, so a little more trimming, nothing major, and I've got the quarter panel fit in the car. I didn't have the camera on that time, obviously, but nothing really special to see. So we're tied up against all the flanges. I mean, it's an OEM quarter panel, so it should obviously fit properly. But we're all good everywhere. So I will put holes for plug welds down here. This flange here needs to be, I don't know if you can see in there, but it needs to be plug welded straight down inside there. Of course, welds around the window opening. This needs to be cleaned up a little more, and then plug weld along there. Same thing along this trough. I will put some holes. This just needs to be clamped tight to the panel, and we'll plug weld along there. Obviously close the hatch, make sure everything's lined up properly. The part I still have some work to do on. So like I kind of showed you before, this is going to be a little ugly, but once I get it welded up, and it's all covered once the tail light's in there. But I'll need to fit the tail light, weld along there. And then this is going to be the tricky part. So I've just kind of roughly trimmed it to fit. Obviously it's not tight because there's still metal here holding it out. So I'll probably cut something like that and just butt weld it right to that original metal. But then down the back here, I mean, we're going on the crappy metal, so we'll kind of trim that back and figure out how much I'm going to rebuild from there. This might not look perfect in this area, 100% factory, the seams and stuff, but once we have a bumper on it, it's going to cover all of this anyway. So, I'll do what I can, make it nice anyway. So I think quarter panel can come back off again. Well, maybe I'll do some of this trimming first. And I just need to kind of finish cleaning up all the edges, get some weld-through primer and everything. And then hopefully the next time it goes on, it'll be for the last time we can weld it on there. So, yeah, a little more trimming. Should be welding it on tomorrow. So it's really too bad the way they cut the back of that other quarter panel off, because they cut the back of the dropout as well. If that hadn't been hacked off of there, I could use this dropout to get rid of all this damage. But not a whole lot I can do with that. I'm going to get in and see if I can hammer that a little bit before putting the new quarter panel on. Don't listen, I left my radio on. You can't hear music in the background. Anyway, yeah. Can't use the dropout, so I'm going to continue on. So there we are, one step closer on our Hornet project. Quarter panel is fully welded. 90% welded. I'll get to that in a second. I want to point out, I did put the door on. Now, I need hinge pins for this. I don't have the lower hinge, so I actually put the door in place with some clamps. Got it sitting right where it belonged, just to make sure I had the correct gap, the correct curve in the quarter panel. You never ever want to weld anything without hanging your panels, guys. You know, if you got to put a door on, put a fender on, whatever you got to do, it's a pain in the ass, but do it, because you weld something together and it's not right, you will regret not doing it. So I think I kind of had the camera on in here, showed where it welds to the inside of the rocker panel. Of course, along the front, around our window, around our wheel opening. This is a little bit messy. It's kind of tough to weld because, you know, we're dealing with, you know, the old quarter panel and the old inner fender, so the metal's not perfectly clean. So sometimes you got to go back around and check for porosity, you know, little pinholes and stuff in your welds. The seam here, pretty self-explanatory. Now these are the factory lead seams. I just melted the lead out with a torch. I see that come up in discussion quite a bit, guys, asking what they should use in place of that factory lead. I have many times just used Duraglass filler to fill that up, like a short strand fiberglass filler, and then just finished with body filler. I've never had one come back, so, and I know that's a pretty common way to do those. See, our gap is super nice for our hatch. I would open that up and show you, but this hatch without the struts in it is really heavy. That sucker weighs a ton. I'd hate to have that come down and crack my skull. So yeah, again, back here, I mean, this isn't ideal, obviously. We've got some brass in here from the old repairs. It's going up into here. Now I've spot welded in a couple places, but like I said before, once the tail lights are in, that's all gone. Once the bumper's on, this is all gone. So yeah, it'll be just fine. And when I said 90% welded, I still have to finish this back corner. So I'm going to have to cut this back a little farther. Now the joint is here, so it's going to be a little tough. So I'll cut that out, and I'm going to have to cut out some of this panel because it's got some pinholes. But I'll just form a little piece of metal and wrap it right around. Yeah, let's get that finished off. So that's just obviously going to be pulled up tight to the bottom there. So not a big deal. So yeah. Oh, ouch. I am going to end this video here because I have no idea how long this one's getting. I've been kind of working on and off on this job and recording on and off for a while. But that kind of shows you what you're up against if you're considering utilizing a used panel. Used panels can be tough because you're essentially doing the job twice. And then sometimes you don't know what you're getting into. Like, you know, I had a bunch of rust repair on this one. It wasn't the best, but it's what we had. In the end, it's going to work out. You know, the original quarter panel wasn't rebuildable. So, yeah, I think we'll end it here. I'll bring you guys back when I'm ready to move on to the next step, which hopefully, I think I've got, for the most part, got the welding done, so we can get on to body work in this thing. And, yeah, start turning it back into a car. So, as always, guys, thank you for checking out the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. And, you know, check out one of my other videos on the channel if you like, because that helps me out, I guess. Algorithms and YouTubes and all that stuff. But I hope you come back and check out the next one. We'll see you then.